It's good when you come together to sing, to worship. Sometimes we don't even think about it during the week, and so it's good to really think about what you're singing and think about praising God. We're going to be starting. You guys all talked about your late to work stories and late to some places stories. This is a story we're going to be learning about this guy named Jonah, and he's famous for one particular thing. Most people don't know anything about this guy except for one thing. Does anybody know what the one thing is? If you think you know what the one thing is, raise your hand. You got there? Anybody else? The one thing? Okay. What do you think it is?
Jonah?
Yeah, Jonah. What happened to this guy that's made him famous?
He believed in God and followed God's orders.
Yeah, well, eventually. Anything else big happened to this guy? And when I say big, I mean big. Big, yes. He was a whale of a man So there's a story, a part of the story, he gets swallowed by a big fish or a whale, okay? That's the most unbelievable part of the story, but it's really a late to work story. We're going to be talking about this guy, Jonah. You're going to find out some other important things about him because they have something to do with you, I guarantee it. But I want you to know that in the Bible there's an Old Testament and a New Testament. And the Old Testament is full of different books, and some of the books are called the major prophets and some are called the minor prophets. Now, why do you think some are called the major prophets? Anybody got a guess? They're famous. Okay, good guess. Do you have a guess?
Well, the books are bigger than the others. The big ones are the major ones, and the little thin ones are the minor.
Is it because they're under 18 though at all?
No.
No, so you can be a minor and still not be a prophet. Okay, so yeah, it's true that the major prophets are all long books. Like it takes you a long time to read them. Minor prophets are short. It doesn't mean that they're less important, right? Just because you're short doesn't make you less important, right? And so the book is short. It's got 52 verses only, but still it's an important verse and an important story. And it's about this guy who was a minor prophet, and his name was Jonah. And it starts out this way in Jonah chapter 1. It says, "Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, saying," don't go any further. Now it starts out with with what word? Now. And it's weird to start a book with a now. Like nothing's happened in the book, right? But you're starting it with now. And actually what the word is and. Can you believe a book starts with the word and? But this book starts with the word and several other books in the Bible, other prophets start with the word and in them. And means that something happened before. And so this is why I think it's important to realize that the book of Jonah starts with and or now, because it means that God was doing something before this, and now he takes up with this guy Jonah. So like in the Bible, it starts off with Adam and Eve, and then he starts talking about Noah later on, right? So God didn't just quit because Adam and Eve were done. He started talking about Noah, and then later on, and he starts talking about Abraham, and he starts talking about Joseph, and he starts talking about Noah. Now, what this has to do with us is God's story doesn't end just because somebody is done, right? Just because their story's over. Because you think the story is about that person, that person is the hero of the story, but they're not the hero of the story. You know who's the hero of the story? God is the hero of the story. So we could even say now, we could say, and Alicia. We could say that, and that would be God's doing something with Alicia. And Mark. So he didn't stop just with these guys in the Old Testament. He keeps on going and something with us. And that's why it's important to find out here, because this is how God deals with people sometimes. And you got to realize that sometimes he's going to be saying, and Tanya, right? And it's going to be something about you. So God keeps working with all of us. And so it says, once again, "Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai." So some adventures about ready to start with this guy named Jonah. Does anybody know Jonah? Does anybody know a Jonah? Nobody's ever met a Jonah? Okay, well then you won't have any trouble distinguishing this guy Jonah from anybody else. So the word of the Lord came to Jonah. And he told him to do something, and Jonah was late for work. We're going to find out next week that he was very late for his assignment. As a matter of fact, he totally missed the boat, kind of, when it was his. And so I just want to tell you, because I identify with Jonah because I've been late to work before. But I wanted to tell you perhaps the second worst late to work story I have. I'm not going to tell you the first one. But the second one was, it was in Denver. My wife was driving me to work because I was already late. She was driving me to work, and my oldest daughter, Haley, was only about 8 months old. And back then, we put the car seats in the front. They don't do that anymore now. You're supposed to be in the back, but they're in the front. We're driving, I'm in the back seat, and I'm saying, hurry up, Janice, I got to get to work. I'm going to be late. And she's driving along, and I'm looking at something, trying to figure something out, and all of a sudden she starts screaming. If you can imagine Janice screaming in the car, it's kind of hard to imagine, but in this particular case, she's just screaming. I look up, and I can see from the back seat, there's an asteroid coming down, and it was in the form of a tire. And it was coming from like at least 20 feet in the air, and it was just coming, and it smashed into our windshield, and just kept on going, took off. Glass all over Haley, and it just kept on going. We got out, we didn't know where it came from. I still don't know where it came from or where it went. We never found it, it was gone. And so this car was smashed. We had to try and get the glass off Haley. We had to get, and then finally, they took me to work. And the boss said, Jay, why are you late to work? And guess what I said?
You won't believe.
I said, no, I said nothing. Because I knew he would not believe we had that story of a tire coming. And so I said, I have no excuse. Because I wasn't going to try. He was not going to believe a tire came out of nowhere and then disappeared. And I have no explanation for it. But that is really what happened. Anyway, so this guy, Jonah, the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. He's going to tell him to do something big, and he's going to tell him to do something hard. But before that, we need to learn, who is this Jonah? How did he end up being a minor prophet? Is there anything anywhere else in the Bible about this guy, Jonah? And we find out one other place it tells us about this guy, and it's in 2 Kings 14, 23 through 27. I don't even know if you have that, but I'm going to read it. And here's what I want you to do when I read it. I want you to ask the question, and the question is, who is this guy that's the king? Okay? So you're going to ask yourself the question, who is this guy that's the king? What's happening to this country, Israel, and what does Jonah have to do with it? When I read this, I want you to answer those questions. You're going to be ready to answer the question, because I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to ask you, who is this guy, the king, Jeroboam? What's going on in this country, and what does Jonah have to do with it? Well, here's the story. In the 15th year of Amaziah, the son of Joash, king of Judah, Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Judah, began his reign. Jeroboam began his reign. He was the son of Judah. He began his reign over Israel. His reign began in Samaria, and he reigned 41 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. You're asking yourself, who is this guy, Jeroboam? What did he do? And he departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. So, was this guy? Would you say this guy's doing a good job? No, he's inherited people doing things to disobey God. Now he's doing that. Okay, and then it says, here's what happened. He restored the coast of Israel from the entering of Hamath unto the sea of the plain, according to the word of the Lord, the God of Israel. He spake by the hand of his servant Jonah, son of Amittai, the prophet, which is from Gath-hepher. So it said he restored the borders. He expanded the borders of Israel, right? He made them bigger. So would the people that are the Jewish people, would they like that? Yeah. So he's making things better for them, even though he's not obeying God. Have you ever known somebody that's doing some bad stuff, and yet it seems like they're getting away with everything they're doing? Yeah, okay. That's what was happening with this king. He was doing bad stuff, but still, God blessed Israel. And it was from Jonah. Jonah went around and he prophesied. And he said that the land is going to get bigger, and it did. For the Lord saw the affliction of Israel, and it was very bitter, for there was not any shut up or any left, nor any helper for Israel. And the Lord said, not that he would blot out the name of Israel from under heaven, but he saved them by the hand of Jeroboam, son of Joash. So this guy Jonah, he went around in the country. It'd be like if somebody went around here, they were a preacher, and they went around here and they said, you know what, this city, God says he's going to bless this city, and it's going to be even bigger, and it's going to be even richer, and everybody's going to get a raise, and everything's going to be good. Now, if that guy went around saying that, and then it happened, what would you think of that guy? Yeah, would you like it? Would you think he was popular? Would you invite him over to your house for dinner, maybe? Yeah, because he's prophesying stuff that God's going to do, and it's happening, and it's all good. So that's what happened to Jonah. Jonah was like the popular prophet. He was like the prophet of prosperity. He said stuff, and everybody was feeling good about it. But was Israel doing good things? They weren't. And still, even though they weren't doing good things, God still blessed them. Have you ever been doing something you know was wrong, and still you didn't get in trouble for it? You got away with it? Okay. That's what happened. God's not out necessarily to get you, right? He wants to do stuff that's good for you. And sometimes he says, maybe if I bless you, then you realize, okay, it's from me, and I'll stop doing the things that I'm not supposed to be doing. He doesn't always, not always out to crush us, right? Because he cares about us. And so here it was. And it said, so let's start this chapter again. So now, in Jonah, chapter 1. It's coming, it's almost there. And there it is. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai, saying, go ahead, next verse. Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against them, for their wickedness has come before me. So God talks to Jonah. God talks to Jonah. Has God ever talked to you? Has God ever talked to you? I don't know how he talked to Jonah. Maybe Jonah recognized him from before when he talked to him. But he talks to Jonah. Maybe he was in the form of an angel, right? Or maybe he had a dream. Have you ever had a dream and God talked to you? Anybody? I've had a few dreams that I think God talked to me, but I'm not quite sure. But somehow God talked to Jonah, and he said, look, I want you to get up, and I want you to go to this city of Nineveh. For it's a great city, and cry out against them, for their wickedness has come. For their wickedness has come before me. Okay, that's in verse chapter 2, I believe. Arise, go to the city of Nineveh and cry out against them, for their wickedness has come up before me. Now, this city was probably anywhere from 120,000 people. Okay, so is that bigger than Brentwood? Brentwood's only about 50,000, I think, 60,000, maybe 70. 120,000, and it could have been as much as 600,000. So this was a big city, and God said, I want you to go to this city, and I want you to cry out against them, because their sin is so bad. Now, I'm going to tell you what their sin was. Cities are known for certain things. Is Brentwood known for anything? Porn? Oh, corn, okay. Corn. Nothing like, I mean, that's totally possible. But let's go with the corn, okay? Okay, and let's move over to San Francisco. Are they known for anything? Okay. What about seafood? Seafood? What about Oakland? Oakland Raiders, who are leaving in about 2 years, but they're known now. Okay. This city was also known for something. What this city was known for was torture. Okay, they would go around and conquer people, conquer other cities, and they would take the people back and they would torture them. They would brag about it. What would you think if God told you, hey, Ryan, I want you to go to Nineveh. Okay, they're known for torturing people they don't like, right? And I want you to cry out against them. What would you be thinking about that point? It would be scary, yeah, because they're known for anybody they don't like. And if you go out and you're saying, hey, you guys are sinners, you need to turn back to God, they might decide they're going to torture you. And I've read some of the tortures they do, and ISIS is nothing compared to what these guys did. They would do stuff, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but do stuff to people before they were dead, and just keep them alive. That's the kind of people they were. This city, this massive city, and yet it said that God wanted him to go and cry out to them. He didn't destroy them right away, even though they were doing all these things wrong, right? Are you glad that God doesn't destroy people just because they do things wrong? God, that's not who God is. Some people think God's out to get you, but really God has grace. He tries to give you chances. When you mess up, he says, I'm going to give you another chance, and then another chance. And sometimes we think that we have a picture of God that he's out to get you. He's not out to get you. He could have wiped out that city right there, but he didn't. He said, Jonah, I want you to go and talk to them. Verse 3 tells us what Jonah did. But Jonah arose, so he did obey God because God said, arise, right? And he arose. That was the only part of the thing he obeyed, though, right? Because it says, arise and flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. So did he go to Tarshish? Look up there. What do you think? Did he go to Tarshish? He went to Tarshish. Yes. Flee to Tarshish. It says Jonah said, arise to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. So God told him to go where? Nineveh. Okay, so pretend that Jonah's right here in Israel. Now, Nineveh would be about 500 miles north of there. He'd have to go over to this door, let's say. Let's say that's 500. That's where he'd have to go. He'd have to walk to go to Nineveh. But instead, it said he went to Tarshish. Now, Tarshish was the furthest place that anybody knew in the earth. It was 2,000 miles away from Israel. You had to take a boat to get there. So God told him, go here, and he went where? He went back to that far end of that back door there, right? He went 2,000 miles. He said, I'm going the opposite direction. So it says that he got up to flee from the presence of the Lord, and he went down to Joppa. So he went down a little ways to Joppa, and Joppa was a city. And when he got there, and it was a port city. So that was convenient. He was able to go to a port city, right? And when he got there, hey there, when he got there, it said that he found a ship going to Tarshish. It almost seemed like God was providing for him, right? He decided, I'm going to run from God. He gets to a port city, and there's a ship going as far away as he could possibly go. And not only that, but it says that he paid the fare, so he had enough money, right? Not only when he decided, I'm going to not do what God says, he's thinking maybe God will worry about somebody else. We got a lot of other prophets here. There's Hosea, he's a prophet, and Amos, and some of those guys. Because Jonah might have been thinking, I'm the good news prophet, right? I tell people that they're going to prosper. If they follow God, they're going to, but this is bad news. And so he said, I think they need to find somebody else. So he goes down to Tarshish, and it's a port city. And when he's there, there's a ship going to Tarshish, right? And he has enough money to get on it. So he gets on the ship. And here's the question I have for you. If God asks you to do something, like, if God says, Kelly, I want you to blank. I want you to do this certain thing. Or if God said, Julie, I want you to do blank, whatever, we don't know what the rest of it is. Is there anything that God could ask you to do that would be unreasonable? There's always a reason to it, but is it sometimes unreasonable? It seems like it could be. So there's something that God could ask you to do. What would you say, Ryan? Is there anything God could ask you to do that would be unreasonable? It's a tough question, right? Because he's God. But what if he asks you? Well, let's think about reasonableness for a second here. If I told, okay, Angel, I'm going to tell you something here. If I said, Angel, I want you, let's say you're up on top of a 3-story building. I say, could you throw your baby down? No. Would that be unreasonable? Okay. She says that'd be unreasonable. Now let me just, and I can see your point, right? But let's say that you're on top of that building there in the 3rd story, and the building's on fire. And there's no way out except the window, and down below are these firemen, right? And they have these nets, and they're waiting there, and the fireman is saying, throw the baby down. Is it reasonable to throw the baby down? Or would you just stay up there with the baby as the fire starts coming in the door? What? It would be a ring of fire. Yeah, it changes when you think of the circumstance, when you expand it, because you don't just throw a baby out, right? Okay, let me ask you another one. Because, Fred, you've been in the military, right? What were you in?
Yes, the U.S. Army.
Okay, then I don't want to ask you this story. Let me ask you this one. Fred, if you were standing outside a bank, right, and there was a guy talking to you, and he says, I want you to go in the bank, pull out this gun to the teller and say, give me all your money, run out, get in a car, and go and speed away. Do you think it would be reasonable for Fred to do that? Don't think it would be reasonable? No? Okay. Well, what if Fred, I know he's not, but what if he was an actor, right? And what if the guy that was telling him to do that was the director? And what if it was a scene about a bank robbery? And it was a fake gun, right? And the teller was there waiting for Fred to deliver those lines, but he said, no, that's not reasonable, right? It would be reasonable to do it, right? Okay, so here's the thing. A lot of times, things seem unreasonable until you realize the circumstances. And in this circumstance, God, who is in control of everything, right? Sometimes people have told you to do things in your past, or they've tempted you to do things in your past, or got you to do things that really weren't good. But they weren't God, right? They didn't see the big picture. So God wants us to do things because he cares about us. And sometimes we don't understand the big picture. We don't understand what's going to happen. And so here's what it says. Put that verse 3 up there again one more time. But Jonah arose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and he went what? Down to Joppa, and he found a ship to Tarshish, so he paid the fare, and he went what? Down to it. To go with them to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. His idea was, I can get away from the presence of the Lord. But the thing is this, no matter where you go, right? You can run wherever you go. Do you ever get away from the presence of the Lord? You can't. You cannot. God is wherever. You might think, I can distract him and I can go and do whatever I want. But God knows you. And he is there wherever you go. Even if you're going down to Tarshish and you go down to the bottom of the ship, and next week we're going to find out he goes down even further because he's trying to escape from God. But here's the truth. God is the one that has what's in mind, what's best for us. And we don't realize this about God, but he's always looking. Israel wasn't obeying him, the country. He could have destroyed them, but he didn't do it, right? And then what about this city of Nineveh? They were doing all these bad things. What could God have done? He could have wiped them out, right? But God is a God of grace. He wants to give us as much of a chance. And what about this guy Jonah? He's supposed to be the key prophet, right? He's the big man. He's doing all that. And God tells him to do something. He doesn't do it. What could God have done to him? He could have said, that's it for you. Your life is... But God keeps giving us grace. And when he asks us to do something, it's because he cares about us. He wants what's best for us. And a lot of times we try and take our lives into our own hands, and we think, I know what's best for me. We never trust God. And we never step out. But here's the last thing I want to tell you. If you're not trusting God, if you're not in a little bit over your head, right, saying, I'm going to believe God for something, you're not in deep enough. If you're not a little bit over your head saying, okay, I'm going to try and do what you want me to, God, you're not in deep enough. You're not going to really experience God's grace. So here's what I want you to do this week. I want you to say, I'm going to believe God for something. I'm going to step out and do something and I might not be comfortable. It might be for somebody else. It might even be for yourself. You want to find out more about God, but it might not be that comfortable. I want you to say to yourself, this is what I'm going to do this week to get in a little bit over just so I have to trust God. I'm going to trust God a little bit and step out of my comfort zone. Instead of running away and thinking that I can just live my life, I'm going to trust God who's the one that made me, who created me for whatever I'm in right now. I'm going to trust him. I want you to just stop. We're going to stop for a moment before we close out tonight. And I want you just to close your eyes and I want you to think about this. Ask God this. You don't have to ask it out loud, but God, what is it that you want out of me? God, you know me better than anyone. And I've maybe been running from you. I've maybe been just trying to ignore you or running around with my fingers in my ears, pretending like you're not there and that you don't care about me, but you do. You care about me and you want me to step out in faith and believe you. So this week, that's what I want to do. I want to step out in faith and believe you. I want you to just think for a minute, what is it that you could do, whether it's for someone else or just for your own faith, for putting your faith in Christ? What could you do this week to step out and trust God? All right, let me close in prayer, and then we're going to sing one more worship song. Dear God, just thank you for this guy named Jonah who did what a lot of us do, only he was on a much bigger scale because everybody knows what he did. He ran from you and he got himself in trouble. And still you showed him grace. Still you kept him alive. Still you cared about him. And you gave him another chance and another chance. And God, I pray that we wouldn't try to run from you because we can't. I pray that we would run toward you. These things I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.